afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon, guys. How are we doing today?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good,
We're
thanks.
good.
Good
Hi, Ms.
afternoon,
Gonzalez.
guys. How are we doing today?
Good afternoon.
Good,
Yes.
thank you.
Sorry for the late start. I had a lot of trouble connecting. I don't know what's happening, but thankfully I got on. So I trust that you had a productive week. Go ahead, Demetria.
Oh, no, I wanted to let you know that Indira said that she won't be able to make it today because of a family emergency.
Yeah, she sent me a note.
Also, Marika says she has to work this week. She's extremely busy at work today, but she will try and see if she can sit into the class when she get a break.
Okay, so is somebody else doing a question or no?
I don't know.
Okay, so we have 2 questions so far with no response then.
And they didn't send email hers.
Yeah, but who is going to discuss it?
Oh, I know.
Okay, so
No, because trust me, I have a lot going on with school. Trust me, a whole lot.
well, like I said, this is for you. This class is only for you.
Right.
You'll only get out of it what you put into it. Okay,
No, I
and
understand. But
we are at the point where you have to prove that you understood what happened over the last 10 weeks, or it makes no sense, right? Because I won't write the exam for you, so it makes no sense for me to sit here and give you the answer. I would have done that already. So this is time to prove that I comprehend. Remember, at the beginning we check comprehension. We check to make sure that you understand.
God, I
Yeah.
got you.
Yeah, so if you're not here to prove that you understand, there's nothing I can really do at this point, but to wish you good luck next week. Okay, so most of you would have been an intro. So do we need to go over? Was there anybody who was not an intro and do not know the rules at the Institute in terms of examinations? Just so we can make, just in case persons don't know, the exam is going to be next Saturday for 3 hours, 1 to 3. If you do not show up on the time that you are scheduled for, there's a $200 fee automatically attached to your absence.
You mean 2 hours, eh?
No, 3 hours.
You say 1 to 3.
Yeah. So yeah, okay, 1 to 4 then. It's a 3-hour exam.
Okay.
Yeah. And so if you don't show up, it's automatically a $200 fee if you wish to take the exam again. You have to bring identification and only your keys and a pen to write with. Paper and the exam will be provided. We have a lot of persons still bringing their cell phones, trying to put it on silent. The exam is going to be recorded. They see all these things in the recording. We have had persons that bought the review sheet, they bought books, they bought bags. Please, even though COVID is, I don't know where it is at, but it's still going on. We cannot accommodate bags. Cell phones are not allowed. The review sheet, it's not an open book test, it's not allowed. Okay, you must bring your identification, your pen, your mask, and your car keys. Please don't bring the cell phones. We have persons checking their phone because the invigilator walked out the classroom and they got put out of the exam. If you get put out of the exam, if you want to take any course at the Institute, you have to go to counseling, and the counselor has to agree that you should be let back into the program. In most cases, your employer is paying for you. We have persons now where the employer paid, called for their grade, and we had to tell them that they got put out of the exam for a cell phone or for cheating. Okay, please. It's just simply not worth it. And I'm sad to have to keep reiterating this over and over again. Okay, please don't lose your job over an exam that is definitely achievable. If you just apply yourself and do what you're supposed to do. Okay, if you have an emergency, please call the Institute and speak to Ms. Dean. And if, there are persons that may have an emergency during the exam, please give whomever your loved one is Ms. Dean's number or the institute number if, they should need to reach you in an emergency situation. Okay, but please don't jeopardize with these cell phones. Okay. The exam is, I think, 15 multiple choice questions, 20 true and false, 10 true and false. And then there's one mandatory question. And then you pick 4 essays from 8 or 9 choices. Okay. By now, you should have, you should know which questions you are going to answer. So I hope that whomever is supposed to present today is here with that answer to present for you, or you'll have to go and do your research. Whichever questions you are going to answer, I do encourage persons to listen to the recording first, read the book on that chapter, and then go and do your research. Of course, all of the questions, if you want to get full points, you give a short overview and then you give an example, a real life example. We have a lot of persons creating scenarios, okay? Stop creating scenarios. You don't get any points for creating scenarios. You get full points for saying on this date, according to the National Guardian or the Tribune or wherever the source is, this occurred, okay? And that's how you get full points. All right, so we want to move away of saying if somebody walk into the bank and they deposit the money into the account displacement, you don't get any points for that. Okay, so we all have a read. I'll look at the numbers for the persons who are not here. We will start with, I think it's Lene and Jamal on question 1. So they are going to present question 1. The possible answers or what would be important. Everybody should be paying attention to this because this is the mandatory question. For those of you who have not done it for homework, please take as much notes as possible. Remember, this question is worth 10 points. I hope that they have some examples for you, but if they don't, then you would just have to go out and do your research. And also whatever question you would have answered for homework, you would have already done research on that. So it would be best that you select that as one of the choices that you would answer in the exam. Okay, any questions before we start? No? Okay, Jamal and Lene, go ahead with question 1.
Good afternoon, class. Our question was, we had to do the Egmont group typologies, corruption and bribery. Our first point, the Egmont group, they facilitate and prompt the exchange of information, knowledge and cooperation amongst members of the financial intelligence units across the world. This group, they define corruption as the abuse of power for private gain. And within the cases, they speak on 2 different types of corruption, that being
Is that
grant.
topic, sorry, Jamal, is that topic corruption?
That's what was on the paper. Yes, ma'am. What you sent, the email, that's what was sent.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
but our topic is not corruption. Our topic is, did you answer question 1 for homework?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, what's our topic?
For the homework we did human trafficking,
Right, so
pornography.
that's our topic.
Yeah, because I thought this was going to be one of the choices because I
No.
asked.
It's not going to be one of the choices. It's the topic that we have, which is human trafficking, pornography, and what have you. If
Uh,
the review sheet has corruption, again, it's just a, you know, I apologize for that, but it's just a, a review sheet. I assume you would, put in the topic that we chose for this semester.
no, ma'am, no, we did not. My apologies.
Okay, no, I'm sorry, because I can understand why you would have been confused, but you did it for homework. So what do you have on your homework? Do you have it accessible? Do you want me to, is it both you and Lanita did corruption?
Yes, we
we
basically went with the question that you sent us. So we just thought that that's what you wanted us to expound on.
No, sorry about that. I thought you would know that we picked the topic, and the topic is human trafficking.
No, we just went with what sent.
Okay, so, Jamal, since you did it for homework, can we
Yes, ma'am.
go to question 2 and then come back to you at the end? Would that help?
Sure. Give me I'll go and print it out and see what I can pull from it to tell the class.
Right, okay, thank
Yeah.
you. Sorry, my apologies.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, who has question 2? Oh, Marika is in here and Indira is in here, so that's 2 and 3. Okay, Doniqua, question 4.
Good day. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So my question was,
My class over, so I ain't gonna reach you till like 2:15.
pardon?
Flavia, I think,
Okay.
can you mute your mic, please? Yeah, sorry, I think
So-
you were speaking to somebody else. Doniqua?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now, yes. But we can't hear you any longer. Are you still speaking?
Hello?
Hi.
Okay. So I'm just gonna read my points on the IMF. Go like that. Hello?
Hi.
You heard me?
You said you're gonna read your points on the IMF?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So the IMF was established in 1945. It was designed to avoid the problems of reoccurrence of the Great Depression. In 2018, the IMF recommended that the Bahamas Disaster Relief Plan be updated. The IMF requested the Bahamas to put a plan in place for disaster relief.
Okay, the topic of this would be the AML deficiencies. So are you going to go all the way through with the Dorian case?
No,
Okay, because
because that would, no, the question wasn't, I understood that it wasn't IMF as it relates to the Bahamas thing.
okay,
Yeah.
so more as the IMF as a regulator, and then there were 22
So I have,
deficiencies.
so I also have here that in September 11th, 2001, the IMF added that the FATF 40 recommendations partnered with the FATF and regional bodies with carrying out the pilot AML and SFT assessments in 41 jurisdictions.
Okay,
The AML CFT assessments are now a part of the IMF's work.
okay.
And
And that's it, what you should say in terms of them as regulators. Now you want to focus on the deficiencies.
okay. My stuff's kind of all over the place. So the deficiencies. One second, I'm coming. sorry, it's a lot of paperwork I have, Ms. Bullet.
Okay, that's fine.
So, my question was also on recommendation 1 and the deficiencies. So the Bahamas is still completing the MLTF National Risk Assessment. And this is the information that I would have gotten from the key findings. And we've yet to develop a national AML CFT policy. There are reasonable understanding of the MLTF risk among competent authorities in the Bahamas on account of the NRA exercise. There's also a need for the understanding to be placed within context of the Bahamas as an international financial center and should be shared for its relevant stakeholders. Measures need to be taken.
Okay, no, you won't go in any further, you won't get any points. You
Okay,
want
so I don't need
specifically
to go-
now, what are the deficiencies? So the easiest thing to do is pick 2 of the 22 that were deficient. So you started off with saying that of course, we know recommendation 1 was deficient. So you started off with saying the NRA. So you already there. So you might as well flow straight into recommendation 1 being deficient, and then what the Bahamas did too.
Okay, so the FATF, I'm gonna tell you right now. The deficiency, so recommendation 1 was, it was in reference to assessing risk and applying a risk-based approach. There was no authority mechanism to coordinate actions to assess the risk, no measures. Supervisors were inefficient with the FI and the DNFBP implementing their obligations and assessing and mitigating their risks. The recommendation for correction, the correction for recommendation 1 was to use the World Bank methodology when completing its NRA. Risk has been identified and assessed, and a risk-based approach developed at different levels of the FIs and the DNFBP.
Do you know what the FI and DNFBP is?
The DNFBP. Size my tongue. Yes, I have it. One second.
Okay, and you know who they referring to as the FIs?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good.
You need me to say it's the.
I mean, just in case we say a lot of acronyms that
Okay,
people don't know, so.
So the DNFBP is designated non-financial business and professionals,
And which are who?
lawyers and business professionals.
Okay, lawyers, accounting firms,
Yes.
real estate, okay.
Okay, so
And the SFIs are who?
who?
The SFIs. Supervised financial institutions,
Institutions, yeah.
banks, credit unions, securities firms, anybody who is supervised by a regulator,
Okay,
the licensees, okay?
yes, ma'am.
Mhm.
So, the risk has been identified and assessed. I read that already. A lack of.
Yeah, so that was enough with recommendation 1 to get the points.
Okay, and
Now
then,
move on to the next one, the next deficiency.
sorry. That is all I have, but as it relates to that,
Sorry?
hold on, Ms. Bullet. I also have, because my question was the CFATF2. The Bahamas is under the regional body of the CFATF. And in 2015, the Bahamas underwent a mutual evaluation report. The report was established in 2017. Thus, in the report, the Bahamas was found to be deficient in 22 of the 40 recommendations. as it relates to the CFATF as well. The Bahamas requested reconsideration of 23 compliance ratings. And in November 2018, at the CFATF preliminary held in Barbados,
See, you won't get any points for any of that.
because I don't need that information.
No,
Okay, so let me
just
cross that
remember
off
now, you already say the mutual evaluation
the
was
report.
right.
Okay.
We already know in that report were the 22
Uh-huh.
deficiencies. Now
Okay.
we want you to talk about 2 or 3 of the deficiencies.
Okay, so far I only have one, so I need
Yeah.
one. So I need more than one.
Yeah, if you want to get full points.
Okay, so I need to go back at this question then.
Okay, but I just want you to understand how to answer it. You give a small overview of the IMF, the FATF, CFATF. Don't go in more than one paragraph.
Mhm.
And then you say, these are the deficiencies.
Question.
Recommendation 1, 5, 7, all of these.
Okay,
Go ahead.
so the information that I would have taken out from the key findings, I don't need to go too in depth with that then.
But the key findings are the deficient recommendations.
Okay,
Right.
so I have them where, but I thought it was just recommendation 1 where so with the targeted financial sanctions related to terrorism, that's not it, because that's recommended.
Yeah, because that was deficient as well. There was no sanctioned framework in place.
Okay, so I guess I have the information, okay, and there was no authority responsible for the United Nations Security Council resolutions. It was lack of info on designations and how they are communicated to the United Nations Committee. No indication of freezing, delisting, unfreezing assets and criteria. And the correction for that was the Attorney General became the competent authority for proposing names to the UN. The Commissioner of Police is to investigate on the instructions of the Attorney General. Outstanding deficiencies that needed to be addressed at the ATA regulations. And we were re-rated partially compliant.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
So like I say, small overview, and then you want to pick out 2 or 3 of the deficiency. You want to say what the deficiencies were and what the Bahamas did to correct it.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, good. Lashanda, anybody else has a question for Danico? No? Okay, Lashanda.
Miss
Yeah.
Bullard, I don't even. Hello?
You going in and out. I can't hear you, Demetria.
No, I'm saying I'm having trouble. I haven't even heard anything yet. Really, I just got back in. I keep getting knocked out and coming back in.
Okay. But you could probably call Miguel. You could call Miguel and see what Miguel says, if he could assist you.
Okay.
Okay. Lashanda.
Hi, Miss Bullard.
Hi.
My question is about tax avoidance, evasions, W8, W9, W Benny. All right, so for the tax avoidance, it is the legal method of minimizing how much an individual or business would pay in taxes. An example of a tax avoidance in the Bahamas is having the unassembled furniture, which is 5% duty in comparison to having to pay 45%. So you can save when you bring in unassembled furniture. Also, tax evasion, that's the illegal activity of persons trying to avoid paying their tax liabilities. And I found in 2014, we had Superwash Limited having to make a false declaration on invoices submitted for coin washers. And they defrauded Bahamas Customs for more than $35,000. And after the Comptroller of Customs, Charles Turner, did his investigations, he would have discovered that the invoice that was submitted for $352.80 and $309.80 were actually falsely represented, and it should have been $672.80 and $649.80 respectively. So they were fined $15,000 plus they still had to pay the $35,000 that they tried to evade in paying, but they tried to blame this on the brokerage falsifying their documents. Excuse me for cold. And then also what I've noticed too, in reference to the singer Shakira, she's having some more legal troubles in Spain because even though she paid the 17.2 euro back in 2014 for the taxes that she was evading, they're trying to come at her again for 23 million euro and giving her a jail sentence of 8 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. So very good. So guys, very easy question to answer. However, some persons still get confused. Okay, please, you have to write the answer properly. It's very easy question, but persons still mix up avoidance versus evasion. Okay, if you don't mix it up, easy 10 points. So you mix it up, and then persons mix up the stories. So please review it. Don't just say, oh, that's an easy one to answer. I don't have to look at it. Review it, because a lot of persons get this wrong because they write it backwards. Okay, and Lashanda gave good examples. Okay,
Thank
go
you.
ahead with the W8, W9, and WBAN.
W8 ban is for foreign to the US individuals. The ban E is for the entities. The W9 is for all US citizens. It's an IRS form that captures the name of the address, the tax identification number for employment and other income generating purposes.
Okay, and make sure you understand also what CRS and FACA is.
Yes, ma'am.
Value added tax and customs duty and social security. Okay, make sure you understand, because there may be some multiple choice questions throughout the exam, or even maybe a essay question on those. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so excellent, very good, Lashanda.
Thank you
for sharing.
Right.
Demetria, are you any questions for Lashanda? No, Demetria, your mic fixed, or we need to go to question 7.
Hello, you can hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hello?
Hi.
Oh. Hello?
We can hear you, Demetria.
No, okay, I'm not able to hear you. Okay,
Okay.
Okay. Miss Bullock?
Yes.
Oh, man. Okay.
Demetria, we need to hear you. You don't
All
need
right,
to go
my
in and hear us.
question
We
was,
hear you.
but, okay, my mic is up. Question was on Okay, thanks. Okay, my question was about, that was number 6, and that's in regards to the culture and the job description of the MLRO. Okay, the MLRO handles the fundamentals in protecting the integrity of the organization. The job description, the culture and job description of the MLRO company and the way they conduct business on a daily basis. The MLRO has a mandate to take on specific responsibilities given by the AML regulatory regimes. These responsibilities are as follows: to be the liaison between the company and the regulators, to ensure the company is compliant with all legal and regulatory requirements such as policies, bylaws, legislations. The MLR also fosters and provides a firm's financial crime policy and procedures regarding its risk assessment. The officer is required to have access to web-based and internal source information. This is to ensure that she is able to have broadly based information on clients or potential clients, both local and internationally. Okay, also receive internal SDRs. This is the form an employee fills out when reporting a suspicious client or transaction. Also evaluate the SDRs. And an example for evaluation is, this is when the MLRO investigates the client's file and transaction to see if the information given is relevant to pursue further. The MLRO is to report all suspicious activities and file external reports to the FIU or law enforcement agencies such as the external SDRs. This is when the MLRO has found relevant evidence of suspicions regarding a client and their account. She will fill out and submit the form with the necessary findings to the FIU. Okay, the MLRO is also responsible for the conducting of annual AML training for both staff and committee members. That's in the credit union, and must be the main point of contact for law enforcement. This means all legal matters regarding the firm, staff, and clients, law enforcement authorities should speak with the MLRO.
Okay.
Okay.
So Demetria, what would be a challenge for the MLRO?
Okay, when you say challenge in her job description?
Yeah, an issue, yeah. They're supposed to be the contact. They're supposed to receive the SDRs.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
They're supposed to help with policy and procedure. What would be a challenge, or what would cause an issue, or what are some of the issues that MLRO is faced today?
Well, some of the issues are if staff isn't compliant, where, like for instance, reporting, doing their necessary reportings in regarding suspicious transactions.
Okay, good. What's this? Give me 2 more.
Um,
What about the independence? Demetria, you still there? Okay, I guess we lost Demetria. Hi.
You were talking about in reference to if they need to be able to report independently from the company, like if they ever be able to report like the CEO or something?
Yeah, so independence, and then as well as making sure that they're not operational. Because remember,
Right.
a lot of times they want the MLRO to be operational, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah. And then they want the MLRO to report to the CEO. So then there's an influence if I need to report you, or it's an influence when it's time for me to get my bonus. You writing my review report. Correct? So we want to make sure that
Yes.
the MLRO is independent of the business. Is not operational, does not wear too many hats. Remember, a lot of companies want to save money, so they are the legal person, the MLRO, the corporate secretary, and
Sorry,
the
I didn't add up out there just now. Sorry, because I couldn't hear you for a bit.
okay, you are supposed to be giving me 2 issues.
You heard about when I started to talk about the independent, right?
No.
Being independent of the company.
Okay, what else?
Also having the necessary resources. The company, well, I guess staff doing their proper
Hello?
KYC information. What?
Okay, Dominique, are you clear on the question you was asking, Dominique?
Yes, I'm clear.
Okay, good. Okay, Demetria, what do you have for us about culture?
Hello?
Hi.
Oh, I thought it was my thing.
Yeah,
again.
I don't know. I guess she'll have to call Miguel and so we could get some information on culture.
Right?
No, we can't hear you. We couldn't hear you.
Okay, you can hear me now.
Yes.
Okay. Now with the oh boy. With the third, that's okay, I did say the independence, also filing of being the staff submitting SCRs or oh. Shh.
Anything on culture?
Yeah, sorry for this. Just a little distractions. That's why I went silent. But sorry about that. The culture. Yes, I do have a little something on the culture. Okay, well, first of all, I think with culture, that is something. It should start off basically from. That should be going to. Yes. Culture has to be part of a firm's business strategy. That's number one, because that's something that has to come down from top and straight down, and that's from board to senior management. The reason why I say that is, for example, say management. Okay, the ML, and with the officer, um, management, you have some, like in where I work, you have some managers who would undermine the officer. When I say that, the officer they tell them to make a call, right? And then say a few staff go into them as the top manager and say, complain about it. They then turn and make the officer look a certain like the bad person. But the officer is only given the instructions, or not really instruction, but whatever was passed down to her.
Okay, and so with these issues in the Bahamas, what can we do to improve corporate culture? What do you think needs to be done? Because I imagine the question will ask you, you know, there's so many issues. We keep talking about it. What would you suggest is the fix to stop making corporate Bahamas so vicious, so unattractive to come to work? People hate their jobs. What can we do?
Number one, I feel, well, definitely we all should um, be more professional when I say that. And respect. Respect is actually number one. We should respect each other. And everyone, I mean, should have their opinions. Now, like I said, it's only the right thing to do is to you have to excuse me, Miss Bullet. I am a bit nervous.
Why you nervous, Demetria?
I don't like to talk much.
Yeah, but you did this. You got to get used, and the only way you get better at it is if you practice. Okay, so practice with us because this exam is very real, and this is next week. And I
Yeah, I know, right?
sure you need some points to answer these questions knowledgeably. Okay,
Yes, I
and
do
like I
really.
say, this review is for you. And if everybody comes together and they do their part, then it's easier. But if people just don't show up or have all these issues, then that's more work each of you have to do on your own.
I
Okay.
do agree with that.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
ask as much questions as possible and practice on this.
Mhm. Now, I mean, I still have to elaborate more on the culture.
Yeah. So you tell me what you said. Respect. You need 10 points. Respect.
Yeah, but no, that there's for management, but
Yeah. So
okay,
what?
the culture.
But remember now. See, everybody blames everybody else, right? But we are corporate Bahamas. So each of us, we showing up each day. What are we doing? Are we the toxic person at work? Are we ensuring that everybody does their part so nobody feels overwhelmed and it's just left for people to pick up the slack?
Well, that's true. That's why we okay. We have to work better, work together, and well, respect each other.
Mhm. What you think about training? Because obviously, we expect some level of training to come from home, but that don't look like that happening. Should companies, no, for true, it didn't look like we are getting the a certain level of training from home. So what do institutions do? Because a lot of times they think that you should come with a certain level of ethics and honesty and work ethic.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we do that, but I still feel with you coming with that, you still have persons on the job. Okay. Say for instance, I am practicing um I guess good ethics. So and here it is on the other side. My coworker have a little issue, you know, instead of okay, what I experienced at work, let me just give example. What I experienced, sometimes, okay, you're doing your work and instead of um you have people who would think that I don't know if they threaten, feel like you trying to take their um shine or spot position. They're threatened, so they intend to beat you down or it just
I understand, but you have to be
I
able
I
to
have
write this. You
I
have to be
have
able to write this. So make sure you write this story down and so you can get some points. Okay.
because I have
So
one supervisor. I just work with that every day. Trust me, I had to pray.
okay.
Trust me,
So
Miss Bullet.
are you truly only praying or are you giving an attitude back?
I
Are
don't
you
give up. Trust me,
are
Miss
you trying to find a
Bullet.
solution? Are you trying to find a solution? Or you show up every day and you get beat down?
No, I don't get beat down. I do my work, and guess what? Trust me. You know the difference. When you know you're doing your work is when your customers are proud of you. Trust me.
So there's no retaliation on your part.
I don't trust me. When do we get to that point? Because I know the environment I work around. I try my best to be as professional as I can. If I see it getting to that level, I will. I have a person who I would speak to, and I would maybe take a bathroom break and calm down a bit, but I would not.
Become the toxic person.
No.
Okay.
It is. Let me tell you, it was so bad. Tell things become. When you want to wait in the parking lot for somebody.
Okay.
That's how bad it is. Trust me, it was.
Okay.
I used to come home crying sometimes, nights crying for the same particular supervisor. And I don't know why. She just, she met me there, but I am doing my job to the best, trust me. And she would, oh, I said, Lord, this have to be the devil.
Okay. Well, I just don't want you to then retaliate, and it's very difficult not to retaliate. It's very difficult not to become that toxic person. But
Oh no, I
I
don't.
want I want solutions. So when you see this question on the exam, make sure you have solutions. Okay, because we have a serious problem in corporate Bahamas with the culture and
Yes, bad,
people feeling, yeah. So we need some
bad.
educated people to sit down and brainstorm. Okay, and so if you answer this question on the exam, it's going to be a brainstorm. We want solutions. Okay, because
Okay,
you don't show
solution.
up being beat down for 30 years. That just don't make sense. At
Right.
the
So,
end of at retirement, you hate everybody, you hate the company, and and so if we start to think about how we can incorporate this in our training, and like I said, if you all go on the ICA, you all see that there are chapters and chapters on soft skills, on how you treat people, and so the shift it has completely shifted from just I need to know all these rules to this is the risk if these people are unhappy. This is the risk if we don't have a strong work ethic. This is the risk if we have a poor culture.
right.
Okay? All right.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Good. Any questions for Demetria?
I
No?
mean, well, with the MLRO, I have I don't the officer. I had some more in regards to the culture
Okay, go ahead.
with okay, with that well, she has to practice the right skills to create an environment for openness and transparency within the firm. Okay, this must be well, that probably already spoke to about being independent of the company. That means also she must be approachable, accessible, um, and also well having a strong whistleblowing procedure in place. And that's say for instance, I have an issue with or say one of our staff members I suspect them of doing something, um, some criminal activity, or so I would then go in and bring it to attention. But that is how, I mean, the culture, and I mean, she should have the, she should, she is, sorry, how can I say, it is her duty to, not release or alert any other staff about the reporting and who reported to her.
So she should be confidential.
Right.
Right. Okay. And
Also, right. Well,
I
that
want
should,
to put
that's
all
with
of
staff
this
and client.
is not only for the MLRO. Remember now, compliance is everybody's business. So all of us should be professional. All of us should be confidential. All of us should be approachable.
Right.
Correct?
Yes,
Okay.
that is true. I agree. I mean, that's basically it, I guess.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah, that's,
Demetria. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Any questions? No? Okay. Dominique, STRs, question 7.
Hi. Okay, so my question contained the SDR, the monitoring systems, and the cooperation with authorities. So the SDR is tied to recommendation 20. And pursuant to section 25 of the Financial Transaction Reporting Act 2018, where any person conducts or seeks to conduct any transaction by, through, or with a financial institution, whether or not the transaction or proposed transaction involves cash, and the financial institution knows, suspects, or has reasonable grounds to suspect that the transaction or the proposed transaction involves proceeds of criminal conduct as defined in the POCA Act 2018, or any offense under the POCA Act, the financial institution's MLRO shall, or as soon as practical after forming that suspicion, report that transaction or proposed transaction to the FIU. Okay. The suspicious transactions can stem from large amounts. Hold on, let me go back up. An SDR or an unusual transaction report is submitted to the MLRO, who then reviews the information and determines if further steps are required, as in submitting the same to the FIU. The law protects individuals from breach of confidentiality when reporting this information. Also note that it is against the law to tip off the person who is being investigated or who is under investigation for from the report. The suspicious transaction can stem from large amounts of funds being deposited to a client's account, the structure of the deposit, whether it's a simple or whether it goes from a simple transaction to a complex transaction. If the transaction makes no economic sense, if it is outside of their normal pattern, if no reasonable explanation for the transaction is given, if it involves a high-risk jurisdiction, or if it's rerouted through a third-party account, and which is also outside the norm for that client, if it involves multiple transactions under the noted threshold. An SDR does not only have to be submitted by an MLRO. An individual or business can do so on their own if they observe suspicious activity by going directly to the FIU. And if it is credible, then that information will be forwarded on to the police for further investigation. The threshold for most company or client accounts is usually established during the account opening process when the client's profile is established and the first customer due diligence is performed. All right, the AML policy for a company should establish a minimum standard to be followed by the business. This is as it relates to monitoring, the monitoring systems. The minimum screening standards are for name and country screening of its clients based as well as the screening of its payments against sanctions and regulator enforcement lists, and how these standards are implemented and updated within the current screening system solutions used. The name screening concerns the screening of the client's names, the counterparts and investors' names and associated persons where applicable against official sanctions and PEP lists as defined in the company's policy. The transaction monitoring concerns transactions performed by clients that must be monitored upon a risk-based approach and according to predefined scenarios. Name screening and transaction monitorings are performed through financial crime risk management platforms, or FCRM. It is an external tool provided by, how you say it, FISERV. FCRMs are used by AML control teams to screen on a daily basis. Most companies just have it run overnight, and then it generates a report that needs to be reviewed within 48 hours.
Okay, is any of this familiar too? Because at one point I had asked persons to go into their organization and find out. And so what Dominique is saying, is this familiar? Did any of you take the time to go and find out? Anita, Clavio, Lene, Jamal, Sasha?
Well,
Any
Miss
of you?
Bennett, we don't, you know,
Oh yeah, you work at the
Right,
airport, okay.
right, so we
Alright.
wouldn't have that, but I
Okay.
tried to ask a few people in the banking system and it's like it's top secret.
Yeah, I mean, they wouldn't share it with you
Yeah,
outside of
and
the
then they told me
organization.
because I don't even work to a financial institution, they don't want to get any problems.
Right,
And
understood.
I was supposed to do, remember, I was supposed to redo the question,
Yeah, understood.
and
What
they didn't want
about,
to share.
did you find out about, well, at the airport, they do a screening. And it's similar to the same screening that they do at the airport. And so, of course, you walk in, somebody checks your passport to make sure that's your passport and your ticket, and then it goes through this screening thing, or they
Right,
check your
and then
luggage. I
sometimes they
imagine if
flag you.
something shows up in your luggage, they can type your name in the system,
Yeah,
correct? So,
everybody goes through the system once you check into the airport.
yeah,
So,
so their system has to be connected to what, Interpol or something?
yeah, it's
Yeah.
connected to Interpol, and it's connected somehow with, because let's just use for an example, an employee, when you come to work to the airport, they say the airport ID is the hardest one to get, and it's true.
Okay.
You have to actually go through our local police system as well, like you say, Interpol, the US policing system. And if you are found to have any small abnormalities, if you overstayed, if you didn't finish pay off your college loans, anything, you will not get that ID.
Right, right. And so basically that's the same premise with the bank checking, right? However, what is important is that the bank is checking these persons every night. I guess the airport is checking as they come through, but every night, because remember, the risk assessment is only as good as today. I could be passed through today, but tomorrow I could be out on bail, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and so that's what I want the realization to be in these financial institutions, and why it's important to know not exactly how it works, but does the system actually check to alert you that Dominique was arrested last night? Will there be a report? Or is there something that you have to do manually? Okay, and so that is very, very important for those who work in the financial institutions to work, to know and understand. Okay, okay, good. Dominique, go ahead.
Okay, Yeah, so they run the checks daily. And the customers or third parties open or modify. They are checked against specific world checklists to identify suspicious names or PEPs. The FI should have controls in place to identify any inconsistencies or red flags. If the client is high risk, a more intensive monitoring is required. Areas covered are transaction types, frequency, amounts, geographical origin, and account signatories.
Okay, okay, good. That was a lot on monitoring. Now co-op, now that we have all this information, now we find out that Dominique was arrested last night. What do we do when the police shows up?
Cooperation with enforcement authorities.
Yeah.
So the MLRO is the person who engages with law enforcement. They're supposed to basically have a good working relationship with the law enforcement because they're the first point of contact within the organization, as well as with the regulators, sorry. In this regard, the controls should be put in place to manage the process of responding to formal and informal requests. So if something happens to someone, if something happens, like law enforcement should be presenting a formal document for a request for information, and they should already basically have a process in place to say, anytime a request is submitted to your institution, you have a certain turnaround time to complete that request. Sometimes they could say it's required immediately, but I guess based on the relationship you have, you would establish that timeline. So you get your formal request, they log it, they have to log it, process it, and trace the request. A single person should be the contact for the law enforcement agencies, which would be the MLRO. A quality audit should be conducted on the process. The process should be in place to review a request for information to determine where SDR should be submitted to the FIU.
Okay, but we can get no points for that. We want what we can get points for. If
Okay,
they log
and
in,
so-
what do you do?
So, well, we comply with the formal request. So, and then you also have to remember to only to provide the information that is requested. You don't
Okay,
add
explain to us what you
additional
mean.
information.
Explain to us what you mean, reply with a formal request.
So if a production order is
There you go.
is submitted, then you would follow just what is in that request. So if they ask for 7 different documents that is required, then that's the only documents that you would submit. Because we still have to be mindful of that, our client's confidentiality.
Okay. And then no police could just walk up and say, oh, I need to see the MLRO. I need this file, right?
No,
Yeah,
that has to be something that's would have gone through the courts and presented in a document for that of official request.
Right. Okay.
And also, if any kick up, then the MLRO needs to have their lawyers or something on standby to review the document to ensure that we are in compliance.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Okay. Any questions for Dominique? Okay, so she gave a thorough review on how to answer the question, because it won't be only about SDRs, it will be how are they established, what do you do, and then when enforcement comes in, you know, what would be the red flags, or how would you ensure that you cooperate but still remain confidential? Okay, and please read the question, because a lot of you waited to the last question, like I said, not to answer that question and did not know it was about confidentiality and failing to disclose. Everybody only talked about STRs. Okay, so please, it's very important to read the question and understand what it's asking. And then it's more than one. I tried to, change it to put A, B, and C. So you will see I need to answer A, B, then C. A lot of you get into the essay writing and you answer A and B and you totally forget about C. Or you go answer A, I ain't too sure about B, so I can miss that. And I answer C. Okay, so please thoroughly answer the question so you could get full points. If you run out of time, only question, and people, I don't even want to say this because nobody answers and nobody does this. If you tell persons they can do a list for question 7. No, there's only 5 questions. So question 5, then they do a list for all and still fail the exam. Okay, only the last question can be in list form. Everything else must be in essay form. Please do not play around with the mandatory question and try and put that in list form. You will not be successful. Okay, so, and don't answer 6 questions because the last one won't be marked. Okay, so please, yeah. Okay, any questions for Dominic? No? Okay. Seems like y'all get it down, Park. Yes, no, maybe so. Y'all good? Y'all feel confident about this exam? Or y'all in them?
Not yet.
Not yet, not yet.
We here. We don't feel
Some extent,
confident.
Miss
That's why we
Bullitt.
talking, we just listening and trying to take notes of what people say.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, good. All right. Clavia, recommendation 1, Basel Committee, methodology.
Hi, Mr. Good afternoon.
And a lot of people sending me the answer to that question. Ms. Bullitt ain't taking this exam.
Huh?
I don't need the answer to your question.
Which question?
I'm not taking this exam. Okay, so please, I mean, it's no benefit to me. It's probably a benefit if you email it to the class, whatever your answer is, especially if you did not show up today. Email the answer to the class so the class could do research on it. But I'm not taking the exam, so it's no benefit to me. Okay.
You mean me?
I mean everybody who sending me an email, Fabio. You just happen to be your turn.
Oh,
No, I just mean everybody who I get 4 answers so far, but there's nothing I can do with it. You know what I mean? Please send it out to the class so the persons who, can cut down the amount of research they have to do. Okay, if you want to. Okay, and then this is being recorded, and so if your mic ain't working, if you can't hear, you could contact Miguel. He can help you with the technology, but you can listen to the recording. Okay, and so if you had an issue, please email Miguel right afterwards and ask him how soon he could get this recording up, so you could have time to listen to it. Okay. Okay, good. Go ahead, Clavia. And I don't only mean you, I mean everybody here.
Well, he said this evening. So I spoke to him already.
Oh, okay. Okay, good.
All right.
okay. You could hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead. Mhm.
Okay, good. So, my question was recommendation 1, the Basel Committee methodology and research current local examples. Now, Ms. Bullitt, last piece, studying is easy. But
What, the local examples?
yeah, I mean, I put some
Okay.
examples, but I know if they actually really apply to it, but I still put it there, and I guess you could guide me further.
Okay.
Okay, so I have recommendation 1, requires all financial institutions to identify and assess the risk associated with its customers.
Country is not financial institution. countries.
Oh, okay, countries.
Okay,
Let me
and
change that
then
now.
in order for countries to do it, then they pass it down to their financial institutions.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry, I typing that in so I don't forget, because it's my study sheet.
Yeah, because my
Um,
first marker might take a half mark off because you say financial.
country, fact, because I say financial institutions. Okay, and then I say it requires them to use the risk-based approach. So you let me say RBA after this.
Okay.
And then I go to say who the Basel Committee is, and it's a group that sets the standard for banking supervision.
But you should tell us first what the risk-based approach is.
Oh, okay, sorry, ma'am. So the risk-based approach is based on identification, assessment, appetite, and methodology. So basically, when you get a new client, you do your identification of the person, you assess to see which level risk they are at. And I guess grade them based on that and based on the companies or the financial institutions procedures. And then also each financial institution or business has a risk appetite. So some people are prone to take on more high risk customers, whereas you'll find some people will be like, no, we don't want to be bothered with that to cause us to have to go under a fine teeth comb or have to partake in what they call EDD, which is enhanced due diligence.
Okay, very, very good, Flavia. Very
All right.
good. I give you full points for that explanation.
Okay, thank you. Now, Ms. Bullet, I did something, I did say if a country or a company is considered high risk, then they'll be subjected to enhanced due diligence and further assessments from regulators. I remember in this class, we talked about something called CPI.
Mm-hmm.
And I found out based on a report from the Transparency International last year, we scored 64 points out of 100. Now, I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, because I thought we was
How do you find out if it's good or bad, Flavia?
Based on the map that you showed us.
No,
with the
based
color?
on their legend. So their legend will tell you what is good and what is bad. And their legend says any country that has a CPI index that's less than 45 is considered high risk.
Okay.
So at 60%, we should be okay.
Okay.
You see? And then countries don't do business with countries that have a CPI index less than 30.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's looking at the methodology and the legend, so you understand how their ratings work.
Right. I could go further into the methodology also. Based on each, like I say, the methodology applies to each company. What rules that you would have in place if you find someone that's high risk?
Well, that specifically says the Basel Committee methodology.
Right. Yeah, the Basel Committee method. Now my examples. Now I don't know if this right.
No, what you saying, but the Basel, because you want to answer that.
Oh, sorry.
What's the Basel Committee methodology? That specifically asks you that.
That's the one would ask you to hold on, wait, I have it right down. Well, I only have.
This what you have right down?
Yeah, Miss Bullet, if you see my paper, you ain't gonna laugh with me.
Okay, but I just want you to understand that this is the methodology. You could see the screen?
Hold on. Yes.
Okay, and a lot of people in the question is just miss this and miss like 4 or 5 points. Don't miss it. They have 5 domains.
And I have that right down. That's how I was going to give you my example using the Basel thing, because I was going to use the corruption and bribery risk.
Okay.
So I use that to apply to one of the cases, which would be Adrian Gibson, but then like I said, I wasn't sure. So I'm talking about his case that he has ongoing now, where he used his political position to gain personal assets.
It's alleged.
It's alleged. Yes, I do have alleged. It is alleged that he used his political position to gain personal assets and fund his own lifestyle.
How is that applicable to risk?
That's where I couldn't connect the two cases. I mean, the two things. So that's why I said I wasn't sure if it was applicable to the question, but I knew at some point, like yes and no.
Okay, so that's what the requires, the recommendation one.
Uh-huh.
Like you gave, you said what it is, then you gave an explanation of what the risk-based approach is. I would go into risk appetite, risk assessment, and risk rating, and say what the Bahamas did to satisfy this requirement. I would say FTRA Section 5 and where we are with the National Risk Assessment. Okay. Then I would go into the Basel Committee methodology and explain that there are 5 domains. And like you said, use the CPI index and say that the Bahamas was deficient in 22 of the 40 recommendations. And as we can see in domain 1, the quality of the framework and the FATF, reports was 35%. We now are compliant in 30 and largely compliant in 30 and compliant in 10 or something like that. I would say that. Yeah.
Okay. So what the
Adrian Gibson wouldn't be for this.
no.
No.
So what would be a good example?
But that's the example that we were deficient in the 22,
Mm-hmm.
and now we are largely compliant in 30 and partially compliant in 10 or whatever it is.
Okay.
Or our CPI index is 65 and our trace bribery index is 81. Something like that. I would go with those examples. Or I would say with risk appetite, we do not do business with PEPs, or we do not do business with high-risk customers.
Okay.
Or one of the controls we have in place is that 2 signatures are required on all transactions.
Okay. Repeat the one when you say with risk appetite again, please. Sorry, trying to write and make
Risk
notes.
appetite, we don't do business with PEPs. We don't
Okay.
do business with high-risk jurisdictions.
Okay.
Something like that.
Okay.
Those are the type of examples you want to get.
Okay.
Yeah. And the bribery index is 81. The transparency index is 65. And both of those, their legends say once you're above 45, you are in good standing.
Okay. So you'll be able to do an international borrowing or lending.
You'll be able to do
International borrowing where necessary.
yeah, but that's not the only criteria, but yes.
Okay. Sorry, I'm making a note of your screen.
Okay. Yeah, this is the Basel Committee. Just if you just remember where we looked at the map.
Yes.
Yeah, so if you get to the map, that's the website.
Okay.
And then you scroll down and methodology.
Mm-hmm.
How does it work? Because of course, once the Bahamas submit this risk assessment, if they get us to be a high risk, we're going to say, oh no, we fixed our FATF evaluations. Our transparency is 60, our bribery is this, and we'll go down the line to prove why we should not be high risk, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. I think I have another question.
Okay, go ahead.
How much of these would I would have to, you'd prefer me to list all 4 or just pick 2?
Well, I just want an overview. So you can say there are 5 domains.
Okay.
First of all, and then you could just go on domain 1, the FATF, and domain 2, transparency and bribery, and then go from there. And that should be sufficient, but make sure you explain it properly.
And then when I do that, I could give them the percentages and what we would do and what we would not do.
You don't have, I mean, if you could remember, then fine, you'll get full points. But if you can't, you won't get points taken off if you don't have the percentage. You can say that we are in good standing because we are at 81 for bribery and we are at 65 for CPI. And
Okay.
some countries are below 30, and we don't, countries don't do business with below 30 countries, something to that effect.
Okay.
And of course, we are medium high. We're not high yet. We're waiting for the response. We're waiting for the actual assessment to be completed and submitted so we can get an overall rating.
When is
And
it? When is it you think they'll be completed?
Well, they said March 2022 and this July. So, we on Bahamian time.
Okay.
But you could say, the initiatives were put in place by the governor to ensure that we do not come out as high risk, which is a moratorium on money services businesses, a moratorium on number houses, and then they created a sand dollar. So no more license for money services business, no more licenses for the gaming houses, and they created a sand dollar, which is a digital asset. So we are not so cash intensive.
Okay.
Ms. Bullard, this is kind of off topic, but I have a question.
Go ahead.
The ICA course start, do you know?
How much does it cost?
When does it start?
Oh, January.
And it's for 18 months, correct?
Yeah, it's 18 months. So in September, we are doing the governance, risk, and compliance, but that is for the persons who started in January already. So somebody has contacted and say that they want to start in September, but that means they will overlap with ICA and AML, and we don't want that. Governance, risk, and compliance and AML. So every year we encourage persons to start at January.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so we good, Clavia? Any questions for Clavia? And remember, risk was 4 chapters in this book. I don't know, maybe 5. I don't know if you can conduct a risk question. But if you don't understand it and you stand completely away from it, then fine. But there may be 2 or 3 risk questions, and you could use the same information for 3, but just make sure you understand what the question is asking and you answer that. Okay? Some people answer or some people stay away completely. It's up to you. Okay? No questions? Okay. Well, very quiet. Okay, Sasha, section 3.19, the Patriot Act.
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon. Okay. So I have 7 points. Please let me know if it's sufficient when I'm done.
Okay.
So the Patriot Act. So the Patriot Act was signed into law by President Bush in October of 2001. The purpose of the act is to strengthen measures to prevent the use of the U.S. financial system for personal gain by corrupt foreign officials and facilitate repatriation of stolen assets to the citizens of countries to whom such assets belong. It also helps to facilitate the government's ability to seize illicit funds of individuals and entities located in foreign countries authorized by either the Attorney General or the Secretary, the Treasurer of this, the Secretary Treasurer. So section 319. Hello?
Yes, we're here.
sorry. So section 319 of the Act requires the U.S. financial institutions that provide a corresponding account to a foreign bank to maintain records of the owners of the foreign bank individuals with whom they deal with. It also allows the U.S. financial institutions that are the U.S. financial institutions that are unable to obtain these required information or assure that themselves the corresponding account is not being used indirectly to provide foreign shell banks are required to seize transactions or close the account. Section 319 also deals with the forfeiture of funds in the U.S. interbank. So this section really contemplates a mechanism for seizing foreign bank funds on deposits in the United States, where a targeted money laundering foreigner has a deposit in that foreign bank overseas, but without the requirement to trace funds to the United States. So in this effect, the foreign money launderer's overseas deposit will be deemed on the deposit in his U.S. bank, correspond bank account, and which will allow the U.S. Permission. Well, they'll have access to seize it at that point.
Why?
Because the money eventually went into a U.S. bank account.
Yeah, so they have it set up strategically that all the money goes through the Fed, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And so once it hits the Fed, that means it's on U.S. territory. And so they set up their SWIFT system that every dollar, even though it doesn't literally hit the Fed, they set it up that way, and that's how they can charge you. Because remember now, we are the Bahamas. They can't enforce their law on us. However, once the money strategically hits the Fed, they allowed to do this. And then the U.S. money has an what? What type of arm they call it? Every
the U.S. money has a what?
Extraterritorial arm. You saw that part? You had that as a point?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so extraterritorial arm, which means that U.S. money is accepted in most countries, right? And so, again, they set it up so that way, so that if they want to prosecute you, you know, they can prosecute you, whether your country wants to extradite you or support you or not.
Okay, I made that point.
Yeah.
I mean, I added that point. Let me don't say
Okay.
I made that.
Okay.
Okay, so the overseas bank records of a foreign bank maintaining a corresponding account in the US, they are also subject to subpoenas. And when a subpoena is served on the US banks regarding these accounts, they must be compiled within 120 hours if it's from an appropriate federal banking agency. If the foreign bank fails to comply with a subpoena, the U.S. financial institution may be required to terminate the corresponding relationship and will be shielded by liability for doing so. And then if failure to terminate a corresponding relationship in accordance with this section, they'll be liable to a civil penalty of up to $10,000 per day until the corresponding relationship is terminated.
Okay.
Is that a good point?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and that's sufficient right there.
Yeah, that's the last point I have actually.
Okay, good. And for those of you who work in the retail and may not be familiar with the correspondent bank terminology, that's the SWIFT system that we send our wires to. Okay, so in the real estate world, people walk into the bank and make deposits and maybe send 1 or 2 wires. However, in the offshore world, nobody walks into the bank. They send transfers electronically, and they are processed through the SWIFT correspondent banking system. If you do not have a correspondent bank in the offshore world, you could just shut down because it makes no sense, right? There's no way for you to do transfers. Okay, and a lot of banks are now using third party or a secondary bank to send their transfers, and they're clamping down on that because there's a reason why their correspondent banking relationship was suspended or terminated, right? And so you should not be using a secondary bank to send your wires. It's called nesting. Okay, and it's against the law. So be careful of that if you work to an institution that uses another bank to send their wires. And quite a number of banks are doing it. Okay. All right, good. And any questions for Sasha? Again, some people stay away from it. Again, very easy question to answer, along with the taxes, along with the sanctions. Okay. Good, no questions. Let's move on. Anita, customer due diligence.
Good afternoon, Ms. Bullitt. Good afternoon, class.
Afternoon.
Ms. Bullitt, I will read what I have and you can let me know if it's sufficient points and if I am on the right track, actually.
Okay.
All right, I did an overview. Let me just go ahead. Okay, customer due diligence is the process used by financial institutions to collect and evaluate relevant information about a customer or potential customer that plans to do business with that institution. Customer due diligence consists of simplified and enhanced due diligence. Simplified due diligence is the lowest level of due diligence that can be completed on a customer. However, enhanced due diligence is the highest or advanced level of the due diligence process, which provides further risk investigation. Enhanced due diligence procedures are considered for high-risk, politically exposed persons or cash-intensive businesses. Enhanced due diligence are conducted on potential customers that are considered to pose high risk for money laundering, terrorist financing, or proliferation financing. Customer due diligence and enhanced due diligence is important to a business, and by having proper procedures in place, it would help with the following. It protects the business against potential risk. It helps businesses to comply with current laws and regulations. It guards the business against fraud or any malicious activity. It helps the institution to identify any unusual behavior or activity with the client account, sorry. I have an institution should differentiate between high and low risk countries or high and low risk customers before conducting business. Therefore, an AML CTF should be in place to ensure that institutions are not conducting business with individuals or entities subject to sanctions. Therefore, institutions should know the type of customers they will attract based on the products and services being offered. When verifying the identification of a customer, institutions should consider aliases that the potential client may have, or if the potential client may have committed any crime or have been subpoenaed. This can be verified through the World Check or the OFAC sanctions list search. This information can assist the financial institution in their decision-making process, whether they will conduct business with the potential client. Enhanced due diligence is carried out on certain clients, particularly PEPs, because they have a higher profile risk than others. Institutions would take into consideration if the client has been convicted or involved in any crime, background check on their financial statements to confirm if there were any illegal activities being conducted on a previous account, if the client has any types of shares, particularly a bearer share, and the nature of the type of business the client has. If the financial institution decides to conduct business with the client and has a verifications department, the team members should thoroughly check the client application to ensure that all questions are answered correctly and signed where necessary. If for some reason the application is not completed in its entirety by the customer, the employee should not initial the application in the event the matter ends up in court, due to the fact that the customer and the institution has a copy of the application. This is to avoid the institution or the employee from being fined. The FATF identified countries that were deficient in AML CTF and were given recommendations or guidelines to follow. In the Bahamas Mutual Evaluation Report under Recommendation 10 for customer due diligence, it explained the deficiencies that financial institutions were lacking in relation to requirements for customer due diligence measures for wire transfers, no requirements for financial institutions to determine beneficial owners, or to consider making an STR when customer due diligence cannot be completed, data or information were up to date, and enhanced due diligence is conducted on high risk customers were only applicable to banks and trust companies.
Okay.
Trust-
Okay, so let's think about what the question of good information, right? So how do we take that information and let's say yesterday the police reported names of persons associated with the human trafficking tragedy that happened last week. As an account officer, we saw that the police said that apparently $90,000 was collected for this voyage. They searched one of the captain's house. They found 45,000. We are assuming the other 45,000 is in the bank. Using customer due diligence, Anita, what are your steps to protect your institution, or if this money is in your institution, this other $45,000?
I think first we'd have to do the KYC, knowing your customer.
Okay, so we have 4 names. So you go into work on Tuesday and you are going to enter these 4 names into your system to see if they are your customer, correct? Okay, now, if he is your customer, he has previously been judged 2 times already with human smuggling. So obviously, we didn't carry out proper due diligence in the beginning. Okay, so his account is open now, and you see this $45,000 sitting on the account. What due diligence do you carry out? What are your steps?
I would say report it to the MLRO.
Okay, okay, report it to the MLRO. What else?
Do we freeze the account?
Well, you have to do some investigation. You can't just say, "Oh my God, the 45,000." You know what I mean? So you carry out
You
some.
need to identify the source of the funds and.
Right. Do you do an overview of the account?
Yeah, so you would do a client review where you
Right.
would world check that person, look at the transactions for the last year, see if world check is or has a history on him. I definitely Google searches, because you know the Google searches are there. Okay, but that client review is important. And at this point, if he has expired documents, you want to look for emails where those documents would have been requested, and however he wasn't compliant, or his passport just expired, or something was missing off the file. You want to ensure that you identify anything that is missing. Just then you will have to answer to that. Okay, then you need to look at his profile. Is this $45,000 within his profile? How did he get it into the bank? Right? Just remember now, on the internal form, you have to write all of this information to pass on to the MLRO. So even though the MLRO is to investigate or what have you, you should be able to say, this is my client, the customer review is completed, this is what is missing. This is, you carry out your due diligence.
Right.
Okay, and if it was in the profile, then you need to find out how it got into the bank without being questioned. Or a lot of times what I found was that it got into the bank because the person did declare the source of funds, but they bought a fictitious piece of, say they sell a property, or they win a number now because it's legal, or what have you. So you just need to find that out, how it was placed, and be able, like I say, to knowledgeably speak to what happened because you are the account officer. Okay, so carry out your due diligence. So you want to say what the steps would be.
Okay,
Okay,
okay.
so good theory that you have. Now, how do we make it practical if this is a real life situation? Because I'm certain he has an account somewhere. Okay, and
Yeah.
if they believe this money, he had half of the money home. I don't know if he paid half of the money for the voyage, but you know. Okay,
Oh,
so good.
yeah.
So that's the type of things I want you to think about. How do you fix this?
Okay.
All right.
You want me to continue with the information I,
No, you had a lot of practical right on what you do, but now put it in it's a real life case.
right.
We have the names. Now, are we waiting, or are you going to work on Thursday to check your system to make sure that none of those names are in your system? And that's not your account, that money in one of your clients?
Right.
What do we do? I ask him, like, what do we do? Or none of us work in account opening.
I mean, I don't work in account opening.
Okay. So, and none of us work in compliance.
I don't.
Yeah. Okay. So I imagine compliance as well as account officers would want to check to make sure that none of those persons are, and this is not only for that situation. That's for anybody that comes out on the court list or the cause list. There are a couple of lists that come out that you should be accessing and checking daily for the people that are at it. Because this is the Bahamas, so it takes a while before it shows up in WorldCheck.
So that should be a part of the MLR, the compliance department on a daily basis then?
Yeah, it should be, yeah.
Like anything that's coming up in the newspaper or whoever's names that they
Right.
monitor it and do
Yeah.
these checks.
A lot of people, like, they take it from the newspaper, but if, I mean, that's if you want to be effective. Or you could wait, their monthly lists that come out. You can wait, but if you truly want to be effective, because what we find is once these persons are charged, they're given bail, and that's when they try to run off with the money out of the system.
So it's a court list that basically you should be checking against then?
Yeah, it's a court list that comes out, and there's another one. It's called a cause list, and then a judgment list, where anybody who was, received a judgment, some type of judgment.
So what is the cause list? What is who would come up on the cause list?
I don't know. I can't remember. I haven't seen one for a very long time, but it's persons who are, I guess, accused, and then persons who are charged, and then persons who received the judgment. Yeah, that's the three lists that we used to receive. But I'm in offshore. That's on the retail side, and we don't have Bahamian clients, and so I haven't seen them for a very long time.
So in the offshore list, shouldn't there be some kind of list that's checked as well?
But we have different countries, right? And so we have an Asian desk, we have a European desk, we have a Latin American desk, right? And the persons from Latin America, they pay attention to, whatever court list and whatever comes out of Latin America, and whatever comes out of Europe and Asia, like that. And so more than likely they would alert. Remember now, the front office is supposed to know their customer and report this to compliance. Compliance will then get hits and various stuff out of WorldCheck. I'm just saying that I don't know. I would think that WorldCheck will get new information perhaps every 2 weeks or every 30 days. But if you want to be effective, then you would. I mean, the Bahamas newspaper is easy to read. The court, these various lists are easy to get. You know what I mean? And you can scan it against your system. But offshore, you're dealing with people from around the world. So it's a little bit more difficult for compliance, that is, to check all these various newspapers. But like I said, somebody on the Latin American, they should be looking at the newspaper, following the court system and, you know, what have you, having access to information within the countries that they deal with. Okay? Any questions?
No, I think I understand where you're coming from with that, Miss Bullitt.
Okay, tell me if you, let's see if you understand. Tell me where I coming from.
You did mention, for instance, the case that you used, what recently happened. You did say to, I guess, go back in our system or go back where you work and, you know, do a check on the individual name to see if they may be conducting business with us or with the company, with the institution, and to check the history on their account to see, I guess, based on deposits or how monies are entered into the institution.
Okay, correct. Okay, and I'm just Googling the cause list, and it seems like the cause list comes, it says cause list search the judiciary of the Bahamas. So it seems like that comes from the Supreme Court and the Magistrates Court, and they call it the cause list. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, good.
I have one question, Ms. Bullitt.
Go ahead.
With my answer to the question, I spoke about, well, I referenced Edison Sumner because we spoke about him so much. I just referenced him in terms of enhanced due diligence not being conducted, I guess, properly. So I don't know if
would he have been high risk? That's the first thing. But he was the head of the Chamber of Commerce. He may not have necessarily been high risk in the beginning, so therefore enhanced due diligence did not necessarily have to be carried out on him.
Okay.
Yeah, it's only if you're high risk. Now, if he was a PEP, if we could say he held political office, yes, and then enhanced due diligence. But remember now, at the onset of the relationship, he didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
Right? He stayed within his profile until he asked for that BMW. He asked for those tickets to Orlando. So he could have rightfully, it did invest some money. He probably collected 5 million and invested 2 million in cryptocurrency. Who knows? But he could have done everything right until he asked for those things that were outside of the profile of the account, which said that these are clients' money that are to be invested. And I sure the clients ain't investing in the BMW for you and your family to drive around in.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, good.
And one last question, because I just want to make sure that I'm on the right track with the question.
Go ahead.
I pointed out record keeping training. I also spoke about a copy of the board resolution.
These are all the statutory requirements.
Right.
Let's put it into a scenario again. Let's say this guy had an account and the account is closed. Now you get a subpoena to pull this back, but you can't find it. Just because the account is closed and he didn't have the 45,000 in the bank means that you don't have to produce that file. You could say, you could tell the police, you can't find that file, that account closed.
No, you're still supposed to find the file.
There you go.
I mean, you're still supposed to have it on record.
Right. You're supposed to be able to go. It only closed 1 year ago. You're supposed to be able to go in your storage and pull it up.
Right.
So That's how record keeping would be applicable.
Okay.
If any of the documents are expired, that's identification. Or missing, you failed on the statutory requirement of identification. If something, the profile says he only supposed to have $5,000 a month and he had 45 in 1 month, then you failed on monitoring. If there was no suspicious transaction, no hit from your system, nothing, then you failed on investigation.
Okay.
So those are the statutory requirements. So if you explain it in that way, then yeah.
Okay.
And this is how you end up going to jail. You don't do nothing wrong. I mean, you were negligent because this guy now is a criminal and you never knew until the police, you know. Let's look at Michelle Reckley, $1.3 million in CIBC and the Teachers Credit Union, and nobody knows that she's arrested. Right?
Yeah.
And we normally know post, but it's important, like I say, Dominique talked about monitoring what systems you have and what they do, and then what you need to do in the absence of not having a very savvy system that'll spit out a report and tell you.
So you do your manual.
Yeah. Now, the only way you will get away with this is if he stayed, he say 5,000 a month, and you saw his pay stub where he was making this and stayed within his profile. But we are just from 2018, still on a learning curve. Because remember, the laws changed, and nobody believes we really had to do all this work for no extra money. And then the company didn't have the $1 million to pay for the system. And some of us are just being trained. So now we know what to look out for. Before we simply did not know. We showed up to work, carried out our function, and hope that we didn't go to jail or didn't even take it seriously until we now see the importance of it. And by the time they start locking people up, hopefully we'll be fully trained and operating efficiently. Because compliance is everybody's business. So even if you're in the compliance department, if you're in account opening, you should want to know if any of those men are on your account list. Are they a client of your bank? It should be the account officer job to complete a review and advise compliance. Or if you're the account officer, you should know compliance coming, and so you should start updating that file right away. Completing your review and signing off on it. But we wait till compliance come and tell us your client been charged, even though it's all over the news. And then they write us up for the file being deficient. Some of us is thief the file and put it in the shredder. And just say we could pay the fine, or the company could pay the fine for not having the proper records. Happened a lot in Royal Bank Miami, so much till it closed down. We had to turn off all the files and say, you have to come to the document control room to look at a file. We had a file where a person was handcuffed, but it was in Spanish. And so nobody ever bothered to go right to Google Translate and see what it was. Man been in jail for 5 years. But you open the file and you see, why is this man on this picture handcuffed? Oh, in Spanish, I was supposed to translate it and I never get back to it. That was him going to jail 5 years ago. Okay, so that's understand your job description and know how to protect yourself in these institutions. Okay, any other questions? No? Okay. Lene and Jamal? Sorry, Miss Bully, give you a double work.
That's fine. That's fine. Okay, guys. We here to do a mandatory question, and which is using case study for the admin group on human trafficking, kidnapping, and illicit pornography. Uh, the U.S. Department describes human trafficking as in-person or modern-day slavery. It is a crime that involves compelling or coercing a person to provide labor or services or to engage in commercial sex acts. In the Egmont Group, case with the Russian Federation, it was seen where a shell company was set up by two individuals with the false goal of cooperating with foreign employers when it comes to the culture and the arts. But in the grand scheme, their overall focus was on trafficking Russian citizens for sexual exploitation. The proceeds were laundered by way of remittance systems like that of MoneyGram and Western Union. So because of this, they were able to receive funds from a number of countries where their crimes were being conducted. A local example would be seen when Eyewitness News, they reported how two men were arrested and charged with conspiracy to transport a woman for the purpose of exploiting her for prostitution. And then recently, as was spoke earlier, the incident with the 16 Asian immigrants that died due to the drowning. Drowning, them dying wasn't the only concern, but the concern was someone was paid for that job. So that's something that has to be looked into as well. Then there is kidnapping, which is described as the false imprisonment in the sense that it involves the legal confinement of individuals against his or her own will by another individual. The FATF has a report on organized maritime piracy and related kidnapping for ransom. And they spoke on how kidnapping can occur in one jurisdiction, but the ransom be paid in another. It also spoke on how family members of the hostages, because of their fear of their relatives being hurt, ransoms were paid through bank accounts designated by kidnappers or through remittance systems. A local example of this was seen in the Eyewitness News in 2019, where they reported how 3 men were taken into custody for kidnapping and sexual assault. And it is said how they demanded a ransom from the mother of one of the girls. Then there was illicit pornography, where it is expressed how they got illegal pictures and film and sold it via the internet. The funds were being flowed through offshore companies registered in different countries, and there were individuals who managed these accounts via the internet. Another method that was used was they were investing in expensive cars, as well as withdrawing cash from special ATMs, and there were multiple bank accounts in different countries. For this one, I couldn't really find much examples, but I did see where Eyewitness News reported how a 28-year-old woman and a 40-year-old man were charged with production, possession, and dissemination of child pornography.
That was the guy who worked at Commonwealth Bank, eh?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, an employee at Commonwealth Bank, eh?
Yes, ma'am. So that's the overall my pay. I tried to cut it down some, but the main thing with my paper, you told me I needed more local examples, which was sort of difficult, I guess, to find. But that's overall what I had.
Okay, and this weekend, like I said, last weekend, if you've been paying attention to the story, that will definitely help. This guy has already been arrested in the United States for human trafficking, as well as Cuba.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
For human trafficking. And there's been a lot of backlash for the prime minister, because of course, you know, our good Adrian Fox was charged with human trafficking, and our prime minister wrote a letter of recommendation on his behalf, and of course he got a lighter sentence or fine because of that, those letters from the priest and our prime minister. So, you know, the persons who spoke out against it, of course, they dig up some dirt on them and they say, think about your ancestors, and this is how they started, and this is how they made the majority of your money, right? And so, yeah, find out how did this guy do this here, seeing that he has already been to jail twice, right? And now they're saying they're trying to find out if there's somebody who was supposed to receive them in the States. And somebody has also posted, and again, all this is alleged, that this is the person. They post their face, the telephone number, and everything, that this is who was supposed to receive him, and he is now in Orlando and everything. So let's hope that he is investigated as well. And I can tell you that over the years, I'm also a licensed funeral director and embalmer. And over the years, this has happened many, many times. And we have never ever caught a captain. So persons are paying up to $10,000 and they taking them 5 feet away. And I believe that they are pulling a gun on them and making them jump overboard. Because there's most of the time there's no boat, there's no captain. There are only these Haitian nationals. And one lady that I buried, she was in COB, and all of them had money in their pocket. They had nails on, they had weave-in. They, you know, so these weren't people who just come here trying to get to the United States. These people who are living here. Okay, and I personally have buried at least 50 or 60 persons that this happened to. Sorry?
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So this, you know, we don't pay attention to it because we say, all the Haitians, we take it for granted. But this has happened many, many times.
Ms. Bullitt.
Yes.
Sorry, what do you mean you buried?
My first degree is in mortuary science. I'm a
Okay.
funeral director.
I was trying to understand. I say, well, what she mean? She buried. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah. So
okay.
yeah. So yeah, and a lot of times, like the Haitian government and always buries them, and so you know they rotate throughout the funeral homes, and so we get DNA off of them, and some of them we can embalm, and some we can't. You know, so like I say, this is I am talking about at least once a month. Yeah, between 5 and 10 persons. Yeah. Okay, so read that case, and hopefully this will put a dent in it, because a lot of persons have lost their lives by being tricked. And it keeps happening. I don't understand if they ain't talking about it or what have you, but you know, to leave on a boat at night from Sandra, but I don't know. And pay what $5,000-6,000. So it's a big smuggling ring. Okay.
That's all.
Okay, good. Any questions for Jamal? Any questions for, remember, it's question 1, it's mandatory. You're gonna need some real life examples. And like I said, the current case that we presented with last week is a good one. The Adrian Fox one is a good one. Indira isn't here, but she talked to us about the various strip clubs. A lot of people just did miss that out, as if we don't have that prostitution and strip clubs problem here as well. So we wanna not only focus on the smuggling, but the pornography as well. Okay, because there's no awareness. And also in the United States, they're reporting that 70,000 Black women are missing. Okay.
That's all.
Yeah. Okay. Any questions, guys? No? Okay. Well, I hope you found that productive. I hope you were able to take down some points and see exactly what you should study and what is important. And I pray that you are all successful. Most of you were in intro and you made it this far, and you did it again. And so I hope to see you in intermediate. And like I said, I won't say it's easy, but it's achievable. It's a lot of work, but it'll be worth it in the end. And I'm certain that you all are capable of completing it successfully.
Ms. Bullard.
Okay. Yes.
I have a question, just a little off topic. I know recently I saw that so there was something in the press where they had noted that Russia had listed or noted the Bahamas as unfriendly. Does that have anything to do with the fact that their stuff that we're not doing business with them now, or that their stuff has been frozen or anything like that because of the sanction?
The central bank had put out a thing saying that it was of no importance to us, right? So we've been looking at it, and this is what we found. You know, let me see. Of course, because we sanctioned them, right?
Yeah, but
We are sanctioned now.
right. Don't
Yeah.
if we do business with them in any event, it has to go through the United States first. So how do they skip the United States and come all the way to us?
Well, we nobody, you know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
They are saying because of these various sanctions and stuff like that. And see, it says Russia on Monday published an official list of foreign states it considers to be unfriendly, right? Business dealings in Russia involving these countries will now require special government authorization, Russia said in a response to crippling sanctions imposed by the Western nations over the invasion. Okay, and they have the European Union. I guess it didn't make sense to put the USA because, you know, it just didn't make sense. And so, say the United States is there. It probably was already on this unfriendly list. I mean, I don't know. Those on the list are considered to have taken unfriendly actions against Russia, Russian companies, and its citizens. Okay, so does it mean anything? I mean, I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. So central bank has put out a statement and said, okay, so they said that we are unfriendly.
End of story.
And yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, again, it's good to say, if you're answering the questions on sanction, that, you know, we were recently, we put out the sanctions. And I think we did that. We looked at the sanction when it came out from the central bank, the list the names, 99 companies Remember, we looked at all of that. And so in your examples, that's a good, in response to us in March, putting sanctions against Russia, they came back and said we were unfair.
Okay.
You'll get some points for that.
Okay,
And the sanctions question is easy to answer.
okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
So you have another question?
No, thank you.
No? Okay, thank you. And so guys, it's been a pleasure. And if you don't move on to ICA, you are all in my network. I hope to see you all at seminars and hope I can pick up the phone and say, Shanda, what's your take on this? Or Dominique or Clavia, I hope we all can leverage off each other's knowledge. Because if it's not compliance, where you want to continue your journey, just keep abreast of whether it's credit, HR, finance, keep up to date, read every now and then, have a look in the newspaper, and awareness is key. And then professionally, you want to pop in. If you don't want to join, pop in to those civic organizations and make sure that like-minded persons. Okay, so I wish you all the best. Go
I
ahead.
have one more question, sorry. What is the difference between the ACAMS and the ICA?
Okay, so of course Miss Bullock teaches ICA, so she's gonna be more inclined to talk about ICA and promote it. But overall, I always compare it to the Canadian Securities Exam and the Series 7. Are we both familiar with those two exams?
I know about the Series 7.
Yeah, so there's a Canadian version of it. Just like ACAMS, it's the US version of the ICA. Now, there are different levels of the ACAMS that you could take, but I have some persons in my class saying that all they learned was a lot of US law and they don't work in US institutions. And so it really wasn't beneficial to them. With ICA, the UK is common law, we are common law. So most of the laws are similar. However, I localize. I don't teach UK law, I teach Bahamian law. So wherever the book talks about their policies and procedures or their laws, I put in Bahamian law. All of the papers say select the jurisdiction of your choice. Of course, you're going to select the Bahamas because it's most easiest to get information and examples on the jurisdiction that you live in. Okay. To me, the ACAMS is a watered down version of ICA. Now, ACAMS, they consider themselves the gold standard, but it's a reduced, what should I say, amount of learning, amount of time, but too much is missing for you to be effective. And so they are better at webinars and trainings. Some persons have mentioned that even though I have ACAMS, I still had to go and take ICA. So I say you might as well do ICA one time. The regulators even suggested that later down they may not accept ACAMS. But it just depends on you. But I do have 2 persons that are in ACAMS now in my intro class, saying this is completely foreign to what they are learning. So it's really up to you. People like cheaper and easier, and not what's best. So I not only because I teach it, I do believe it's a better program. It's more in depth, it's more thorough, and you get more out of it. A little cheap, I mean, a little more expensive and a little bit more work, but at least you don't have to do a retake, and you wouldn't be completing ACAMS and then coming to an intro class and starting over.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But they're really good, like I say, for the trainings online and the webinars and stuff like that. They're good at that. you know. Any other questions? Okay, guys. Well, I hope that you getting some study time from your institutions, or you're taking a day or two just to relax. And that's the key. It's organization. Go into the exam knowing that I'm going to answer the question on sanctions, on risk. I know what the mandatory question is. Study from your notes, do some research, get your cases together, prove your comprehension, and you will be successful. But don't go overwhelmed and rushed from work and picking up the children and all these things. You have to, in order to retain this information, you have to be in a good mental state. And you normally have to unwind and relax to get to that mental state. Okay, it just seems like we miss the basics of life. We are so caught up on all these rules and regulations, the basic, self-care, we overlook so many times. Okay, so some self-care and feel good, and then hopefully you'll retain this information and be able to successfully apply it next week. Okay, remember, Ms. Bullitt is not allowed to give out grades until 2 weeks after the 6th, the exam results will be ready. Okay, and you can if the office doesn't send you an email, you can just contact them and you can get your grade. Okay, and the same time that you're there to take, it's an in-person exam, take your ID, keys, mask, and a pen, and speak to Ms. Dean if you plan to go on to ICA, and there are payment plans, and even though it starts in January, I think as low as $250, you could probably start paying per month. So by the time it's January comes around, you will almost be paid in full. And speak to your institutions. I actually don't personally believe in paying school fees myself, and there are benefits. Read your employee handbook and find out what your benefits are. Normally in the financial institutions, they give $3,000 a year, and I just split it up. I say, okay, well, this year I can take these classes, next year I can take the next class, and then one year I even ask, can I have an extension, or can you pay for my books separately? The worst thing they could say is no, but you can ask. Okay, and for memberships, by now you should be students of BACO. You should be attending BACO's meetings. Your institution normally pays for 2 memberships as well. Again, just ask. Okay, they normally they want to be good citizens, so they buy a complete table at the BACO events. So I do seminars, nobody goes, so you be there to volunteer and say, I'll dress up and go and network. Okay, so a lot of things you don't have to pay for. Just read your employee manual and see what the benefits are. Okay, and take advantage of them. Okay, guys, so I wish you all the best. And if you have any other questions or concerns, just let me know. No?
Thank you, Ms. Bullitt.
Thank you too, Flavia. It's been a pleasure to meet all of you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Bullard, and good luck to everybody in the class.
Okay. So
Thanks, Ms. Bullard.
Thank you to Zane. Glad to see you back.
Thank you. Glad to.
Okay, and so get to know some of these good people. If you need some help studying, I think there's a WhatsApp group if you want to get into it, and they may be able to give you some tips
Okay,
if you
sure.
need it. So you could reach out to, I don't know if Dominique or Daniqua mind if I say reach out to Dominique or Daniqua, and or Anita, and your give some support to Zane for me, please.
Okay, I'll reach out to
Bullard.
them.
Oh, sorry for the noise in the background. I guess she could have given us a number. I don't know. She's in the group chat. I know
Yes.
the group chat isn't that active, but this is the last ball, so we probably could
Yeah.
help.
Yeah, are you going to study? Are you gonna have a study session or anything, or?
Nobody said anything in the group, so I don't know if Dominique or Demetria, sorry if I didn't pronounce the name properly, or Clavia would want us to do something. They probably can speak to that.
Okay, so I guess Zane, you could send them your contact if you know, and
Okay.
or y'all could share one of your contacts so she can call if she has questions and to ensure that she has sufficient information.
I'll write it in the chat.
Okay, great, great.
Okay.
Okay, guys, so for the rest of you, you know, take care, and I'll see some of you in ICA, and I'll see some of y'all when I have to call y'all on the phone and say, Miss Bullitt needs some help. Okay, so take care of yourselves and be safe.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am,
take
you
care.
too.
Bye-bye.
Okay, have a good evening. Enjoy your
too.
weekend.
Thank you, you too.
Okay.